Hi, and welcome to the Modern IT Podcast. My name is Christian.
And my name is Michael, and today we're going to talk about modern data platform in the sense that every company is looking to reinvent their business and become data driven. So that will be your topic for today.
All right, perfect. So, where
Uh,
do we start around this topic then?
if we just set the stage a bit about where this discussion comes from. So I've seen this in the big enterprises where you always want to have some kind of a platform where you do the big data analytics, or if you have a modern data warehouse or and such. You do it traditionally with the hardware and big SQLs or and so on. But this cloud capabilities that you have today, they really make it possible for anybody to actually do these big calculations.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's where we start.
and we kind of look into how to incorporate Azure and all the services into a small to medium-sized company because a lot of companies don't really know where to start or even how to utilize Azure. So that's kind of what we try to pinpoint here.
Every company is looking to reinvent their business and they want to become data driven, of course. At least that's what's happening in the big enterprises. And they have the budget and the means to it, and they can hire people to do it. But the platform that they're leveraging, the cloud, public cloud platform, it's a PaaS solution, so platform as a service, which means once you have it designed and in place, you don't pay for it unless you use it, which means everybody would be able to have the state of the art uh, platform and where they could process their data from.
Okay, so even a small company with like 2-3 employees could utilize this as well.
Definitely. And that's kind of what I'm doing uh, when I do my demos is I have this set up and it would be in my own domains, my own subscription, which means I could potentially be the one man business or three, four, 10 people business.
Yeah.
But I have this data platform where I can process petabytes of data and get an output, which historically would require a heavy investment of several millions.
Okay, and you only pay as you play, so to speak.
Yeah, you only pay when you use it, so it would be standby the platform, and then you push data through it. Which means even if you push 5 megabyte of data through this platform in whatever form, it would you would get the output. And if you push 100 terabyte through it, it would just cost more, but the result would be the same. That data would be processed through the platform.
So basically, for a small company, this could probably very lucrative. Probably not much data, and then the cost isn't that high either.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the cost of setting it up, if you have a person that knows it, it would be a couple of hours and tops a couple of days. The difficult part in the whole platform setup would be the data analytics. I mean, you have to have some kind of data domain knowledge,
Yeah.
what you want to do with the data. But like the infrastructure parts, the tools to be able to do something with the data, I mean, those would be there.
Yeah, but what is this even? I guess a lot of listeners don't even know what we're talking about. What kind of?
Yeah. Okay. Let's take an example then. So, say if you would be some kind of retailer or sell something, let's say bread, and you
Yeah.
would sell bread to different stores, you would know how much you produce and how much you would sell to different stores in bulk. But you wouldn't have any insights in how much the actual store would sell. And in some cases, there are back and forth reporting. So you would get the data eventually from the store you sold it to, and they would tell you that, yeah, we sold 5 of this and 5 of that. And then you would have to put that data and correlate it with the ones you have. If you have in some cases, you have a return structure for the bread. So if I drive out with 10 loaves of bread to your store and you only sell 5, there's a agreement that I would pick up the 5 when the date is gone out, right? And then I would de-inventory and whatever.
Yeah,
So this is
exactly.
real, yeah.
And then you would
So
have the data
that,
yourself, but that
yeah,
might not be the case always that they report or send the product back.
no, exactly. And you have it's like a guessing game in those cases.
Yeah.
There's other ways to do it. So many of the stores they report to some kind of a central system uh, where they report all of their sales, like every orange that they sold, or every milk that they sold, or every whatever. And you would be able to buy that data, but then you would have to do some cleanup and get out the data that would be relevant for your bread business.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe this is a bigger example than intended, but the idea is that the platform to handle this kind of a back and forth data sending would you would be able to have it even if you're a small company. So
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. So basically, if you could get the data for month to month, then you could probably um, lose a lot less if you know exactly how much they're sending back. You don't have to send them as much.
exactly, and you would potentially be able to look at how your competitors are doing from that data
Oh,
also.
okay.
Yeah. But that might be a bigger case. If we would look at a small what's it called, a booking firm, or a small firm that does your taxes, for example,
Yeah.
there's a heavy use of Excel files, and they would get the data in receipts or in PDFs or any kind of information, right?
Yeah, correct. I see this all the
Yeah,
time. There's a lot of emails with Excel files to be gathered and
yeah. And what,
analyzed.
what and what they do in that case is that they manually enter those numbers in some kind of system somewhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So with the public cloud components, you would be able to automate that. Even if the someone would fax you a receipt, you would be able to scan that receipt, put it in text, and push it through your system. And now we're talking almost AI like components, but that's totally doable with platform services in cloud. So even if you would be a 10-man reporting firm, you would be able to have state of the art, uh, yeah, platform to process this.
Yeah.
And the
The
big
latest
gap there,
technology.
yeah, and the big gap there is the know-how actually. And I mean, if someone has done this kind of platform,
Yeah.
a week to do it for a 5-man business.
So they should
So
could probably be a great business as well to contact smaller businesses and help them set this up.
definitely, I think so. But there's no bigger gain, or let's say revenue, in this if it's a small business.
No,
But the
it's probably
possibilities are
a
there.
week's work or something, but maybe they're even not connected to Azure yet. So then there might be
Yeah,
a little more.
yeah, and yeah, exactly. So then you have to do the basic steps in the beginning, and but then let's say you would set this up for whatever reason, uh, they would only from end user perspective, they would only do the input side, and they would only look at the output side. They wouldn't do anything in the middle where all the components actually are. So, and
No,
if
there.
something breaks, then there's support on it.
Yeah, because
And if
there
you,
has to be
mm,
someone who's data aware that makes the configuration and setup, right?
could you take that again? There's somewhere.
Uh, a small company would need some help to set this up. Someone who's data aware and can make the connect the dots in Azure, right?
Yeah, and even if, yeah, so let's say you do this and you would have a system that's running 24/7 or on demand when you want it to do. If something breaks, then you have a whole, yeah, someone needs to come in and help us at that time. And as soon as you have a good functioning system, it tends to be used a lot, and it rises in priority. So eventually, if this breaks, they would need help, but real, really quick. Otherwise, it would be,
Yeah,
yeah, bad for them.
yeah, I understand. It seems like this could be very, very beneficial. There might be some getting used to time as well, I assume.
Yeah, it could be. Yes, yes, definitely. If you don't, I mean, from our thesis here is that most of the businesses that we that would be able to use this in the smaller segment, they don't have anything similar today.
No, probably not, or maybe
No,
something very basic.
yeah, which is good in some cases, because if they're gonna get used to anything, it might as well be the new stuff, right?
Yeah, right. But the data generated in Azure, how it is displayed? Can you
Uh, yeah, so
touch
then
on that?
you would potentially you would put it in a SQL or in a other data DAX system, but for the end user, it would most likely be like in Power BI, that you would see it as a report in Power BI, where you would be able to leverage all the Power BI capabilities of building your own report or and pushing it to different dashboards and so on.
Okay, so you can get a nice clean report with tables and charts and everything you need
Yeah,
to
and you
get the
would be able
overview.
to build your own report depending on the data that you would see in Power BI.
Yeah.
So the backend system would only like push the data to some kind of a end user reporting interface.
Okay. And this could be email out to everyone as well, I guess.
Yeah, well, Power BI dashboards you can share also if you have. So, yeah, now we're talking about licensing, but you would be able to share them with different people,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
also if you have, yeah, so potentially uh, in a smaller business, everybody would be able to work with the same dashboard and only see uh, what they're supposed to see. Yeah, well, now talking Power BI, that's another. Uh,
Another topic.
yeah,
But this seems good.
yeah. Maybe if I would take it step by step, not real step by step, but like in a high level step by step.
Yeah. Sure.
Uh, so imagine you have uh, a lot of different data inputs. It could be info from your website. It could be mails sent to you. It could be a system you have reporting. It could be your ERP system or whatever. All of those data sources have some kind of insight that you need for you to build your report, right?
Yeah.
And you would ingest that somehow. It could be, let's say, a logic apps. We can talk about that in another podcast. But you would have a logic app that would take up the data, put it in a data lake, in Azure Data Lake, uh, and you would have a data factory, data factory pipeline that would do some transformation on the data. You would put it in a, depending on how big it is. So if you want to do some other AI or insights on it, you could do it with something called Databricks. in Azure Data Lake Generation 1, there was a USQL data lake analytics capability. That's also a topic for another podcast, but yeah, I don't think that will live longer. And then you would put it in a traditional database structure, in a SQL data warehouse, in a SQL, or just in a table store. And that table, SQL would then be the one that you push to Power BI.
Right.
But one of the key things here is that whatever data source you have would uh, would put their data in its raw format in a data lake. And once you have it in the data lake, you can use whatever different kind of capabilities to do whatever you need. Explore, prep, train, model, and yeah, eventually serve it. So serve it to a visualization tool.
Right.
And yeah, it might sound big and fancy, but the components are really, I mean, it's just Lego pieces, put them together, and you have a Ferrari for every person.
Right. So basically, you can have like 10 different data sources from all over, webmail and whatever, and get a clean, nice report out from it.
Yeah. So in traditional SQL database structure with SSIS, SQL integration services, you would have something that you would do extract something called ETL. That's extract, transform, load, which means that you would extract the data from where it is, you would transform it, and then you would load it again in a structured format. So the loading part would be into a database again.
Yeah.
And once it's loaded, it's in a fixed format, right?
Yeah.
So
Correct.
if you would want to if you want to marry that uh, data with something else, like another input you have, means you would have to load it in that structured format again. And
Yeah.
that's kind of the old way how you always done it. But with these new capabilities, you can use something called extract, load, and then transform, with, uh, which is also called schema on read, which means that I have this raw data. I want to read this data with this schema, which means it doesn't have to be in a structured format because I say when I read it, I'm going to read it with this schema. So schema on read, which means you have 10 data sources with different structures, but when you read it, you define how you read it, and then the output of that read would be a single data source that
You
you would
you
be.
mentioned that you could load up PDF files as well. So that's basically what they're talking about here, right? You don't have to extract the data from the PDF to an SQL. You can just kind of use the PDF as is and match it to a schema, right?
Yeah, eventually you would probably have to do something more with a PDF,
Okay.
like a prep stage or whatever, because even if you would be able to read it, depending on what system you would use, okay, everything depends, but you would be able to have that PDF in its format and do read. But if you want to do it on a, let's say, on a smaller scale, maybe you would only use data lake analytics that's available in generation 1 data lake with a USQL. And USQL language is a mashup between C# and SQL, the SQL language. So whatever you would be able to do in a C# scenario and in a SQL scenario, you would be able to do that. And if you want to read from PDFs, you might have to do a step before that so you can get the data in a readable format, not just in a, yeah. It depends on the data, of
Right.
course. But the idea is there. Yes, you would be able to do it. And
Cool.
there's a good there's a good showcase from Microsoft called the JFK files.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like, yeah, if you heard about it, uh, then eventually they took the whole research, the whole all the data they had around the JFK massacre, not massacre, sorry, the JFK murder, um, and they put it all in a searchable indexed format. So if you would look up a person in that investigation, the search would give you pictures, they would give you handwritten notes, they would give you documents that written in yeah, written documents and whatever. So it doesn't matter what kind of a data or a data source it was, it would give you the file, and that's because they were able to index it regardless of this of the data source. And
Okay.
eventually this is a capability that you would have even if you are a 5-man company.
Right. So this should be interesting for small to medium sized businesses as well.
Yes, it should be. And but so the thing that I would be struggling with is is finding the business use case for it, for the specific business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you have the capability, but just because you have the capability doesn't mean that you know what to do with it.
No, there has to be someone to guide them, I guess. This is
Yeah,
new.
yeah. So, but yeah, I'm gonna continue lobbying for this kind of a platform whenever I get the chance, and maybe someone somewhere down the line says, "Yeah, I want to try it out," and then they will have an awesome experience and a great use case and get a lot of return of investment, hopefully.
Yeah.
Because at the
Um,
moment, it's only the big companies that are even looking into it because it's part of their data warehouse business.
and you only pay once you use it. So if you configure it once and you have to run the reports for 3 hours at the end of the month, it's you only pay for that. So everyone should use it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And when I do my demo environments, I have the whole ingest, explore, prep, train, model, and serve structure with a data lake underneath. And all of those components I have in those steps are platform as a service, and I don't pay for it. The only thing that would cost in my setup when I'm not using it is the storage.
Do you want to go through the components this time, or should we save that for another podcast?
No, I can just mention them, and then we can go through the components in another podcast.
Great.
Yeah, but Azure Data Lake, that would be the number one component. You have to store your data somewhere. And if you're going to try it out, start with Azure Data Lake Store Generation 2. Don't go with number one. We can talk about why don't go with number one in another podcast. And I would advise you to start looking into Azure Data Factory. That way, there you can do your transformation pipelines, the ETLs, and ELTs actually. And I would advise to look at the ELT. That's the modern way. And then, yeah, you would store the output in a data store, potentially in a SQL or back to the data lake, and then you would push it to a Power BI. I would leverage a Power BI to read the output eventually. So, but yeah, we can go through the components in another podcast, more detailed.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. So maybe we are we ready to wrap this up?
I think so. We have to save something for the next time, right?
Yeah, we could go on forever.
Yeah.
But if we would leave some kind of a call to action, it would be to look up, let's say, look up our modern data warehouse and look at the components that Microsoft is presenting in a modern data warehouse. And whenever you see a platform as a service, that means that everybody will be able to leverage it at any time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks for this time.
Yeah, thanks. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to the next podcast.
Same here. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.